Hello everybody and welcome back to the snooker action. We're now down to a single table, and what a day this is for the snooker action. Jack Lisowski and Zhou Yuelong are going to battle for the first spot in the final, and then of course the winner of this bout will have to play either Watchalong or Watchalong. So it is a little bit of a battle of an underdogs there. The world number 29 is going to take on the world number 30, but in the end it is still for a spot in the final, and we still, by the way, do have the both players that have managed to make it into the English Open final, Zhou Yuelong and Watchalong. And what a statement that actually is for snooker if both of these players are actually going to be coming into their matches as the underdogs there. Jack Lisowski, after a wonderful display against the likes of Kyron Wilson and Mark Selby previously, will be trying to finally get his maiden ranking event title on the board. And Zhou Yuelong, I mean, what a story has been already for him throughout this tournament. If you talk about, him getting a walkover over Ali Carter there, getting himself with a clash with Tom Ford, in the end managed to overcome a massive deficit of 4 frames to 2 there, not in his favour, to be the man on top of Tom Ford yesterday and still win that match by 5 frames to 4, whilst producing a brilliant clearance in the final as well. But ultimately, he's off on the back foot here, as the break-off is going to fail him slightly, and Jack is going to be on top of it very much at the start of this match, as he runs the red in towards the left corner, and he's now going to position himself on for the blue. Very much would expect the match to go either way, but ultimately for it to be very much a fast-paced one, especially with the way that both Lisowski and Zhou have been playing recently. So I think it's going to be very important for either one of them to be up and running quickly, and so far it has gone exactly according to the plan of Jack Lisowski, as he gets himself in with a chance. So lines up a blue in towards the right corner as he just rolls the colour in, and wants the cue ball to stop before it reaches the first red, and he's going to have a rest shot available into the same corner pocket. So now just having a little look to see if you're going to be able to position himself on the black, and of course if the answer is going to be negative, you'll have to use the right hand side of the cushion and get the cue ball back up the blue there. So positive start there for him, of course compromised by the mistake of Zhou Yuelong at the start of this frame. But ultimately he'll try and do something that, Mark Selby and Chip Chayanu and Kyron Wilson of course managed to do to him in those previous matches, and that of course was the fact that Lisowski lost the opening frame on each of those occasions, but then managed to overcome the deficit and in fact win 3 frames on the bounce in each of those encounters against both Chipchaya, Selby and Wilson just yesterday, managing to have himself a nice little comfortable gap to try and hold on to. And more often than not, just making sure that the match is going to be closed off from the second time of asking. Just once again there, rolls the blue in towards the left middle. So had to send the cue ball a long way around here. And in the end, probably going to compromise himself ever so slightly on the exit. And have the red in towards the right corner. Having to play it from the cushion. And just about makes the red in. So it was very close, but in the end, he managed to make that one stick. So my prediction 6-3 by Jack. Yeah, I was very much disappointed and surprised there with the percentage in towards Lisowski's favour. You know, 81 for Jack to win the match and only 19 for Zhou. I think you underestimate a player that, first of all, has managed to make it into the final previously this season. Something can't be said about Jack, of course. And you could argue that Jack had a tougher opposition going into this match with him having to go through the likes of Selby and Wilson. You could throw Unu as well out there, but I think, you know, Zhou Yuelong always had something ahead of him throughout the whole Nation series, and he always managed to come out on top, barring that impressive decider with Mark Cullen that he just found himself on the receiving end of things there. Right now, Lisowski pots the plant in towards the right corner, just frees himself up with a couple of more reds. So far, of course, with it being very much a quick fire frame as you would expect it to be, it has been controlled risks so far from Lisowski, not running himself out of position just yet, and trying to be in complete charge of position as he gets himself on for a rush shot once again here. In towards the right corner, but he decides against it, so in the end will sacrifice the distance on the cue ball and try and guide the red in towards the left corner. Once again, doesn't want to be straight on the black though. As I said, that will force him to go really deep into the cue ball and try and send it back towards the right hand side cushion of the table. So just has a little look to see if he's got any sort of angle, and if he does, if it's going to be enough there for him to try and use topspin on the shot. Maybe try and aim the cue ball in towards the bunch of reds, but surely he's not going to have enough of the traction for it. And looks like he's just going to run himself out of position and commit to the fact that he either is going to take the red in towards the yellow pocket, or he's going to play a safety shot instead and you know, try and hold on to that 36-point advantage. That is going to be a nice healthy lead for him. But what a nice start this is there. Getting the red in towards the yellow corner perfectly there. And the traction on the cue ball, just allowing himself to use that cushion to his advantage and get himself set up perfectly on this black in towards the left corner. So just having a little look to see if he's got any more plants available to his name. And all about the next shot here for him. I think that plan that he was looking at in towards the right corner is not going to be available just yet. Unless he makes some changes to it here. With the cue ball being sent in towards the reds being a possibility. And one of them has gone towards the right middle, but ultimately going to end up on the top part of the table. And of course not accessible from the way the cue ball has finished up here right now. So maybe just guide the cue ball in towards the right corner once again here. Not having to use the rest, but you know, it's still going to be a difficult cut. And it was missable. In the end, Lisowski still committed to it. And I think he'll be very relieved to find himself, even though he's missed the red, still not give away a position there. Hello everyone, hello. And well, let's see what Zhou Yuelong can respond with. You know, it was always going to be the battle of mistakes here, earlier on especially. Both players were off to a bit of a scrappy start against their opposition yesterday. And in the end, both of them managed to lose those frames. But of course, Zhou Yuelong going 2-0 down there to Tom Ford, managed to recover it to 2 frames each before going 4-2 down and of course having to climb a massive deficit of 2 frames to his name. So now Zhou just pushes away the cue ball in towards the black ball cushion and leaves a chance away for Jack to try and send the red in towards the left middle. In the end, in being so close to actually potting the red, probably has played against him. And I mean, once again there, he's quite lucky not to give the same red away to Zhou. So far the luck being on Lisowski's side. And having a little look to see if Yuelong is actually going to guide that red towards the left middle. Or he's going to use a cross double option instead. Of course, you'll have a little pocket extension on the right-hand side of the table because of the red that was missed previously by Lisowski. But in the end, he did catch that red, but he caught it in a way that was never going to actually pot it. So getting the cue ball down the table for the black has actually worked out really nicely for him. Even though he didn't pot the red, still not going to give any invitation away to Jack himself. So Lisowski himself just having a little look to see if he can try and pot some of the reds here. And of course, if that's not the case, he has to make sure he gets some of those reds on towards the cushion, because having 44 points advantage to his name is going to be very healthy, especially if his opponent finds himself on a chance for a clearance for Lisowski to be having some of those reds on the cushion. And in the end, Jack goes for a risky shot there, I would say, because, you know, he's tried to take one of the reds away from the right corner pocket, but instead, I mean, has he not given a little cutaway in towards the right middle? Zhou will have a quick look at this one. Basically, the red that was missed previously there by Yuelong is gone quite close towards the middle pocket, but because of the line of the cue ball pretty much matching the way the red is positioned, turns into a very thin of a cut there for him, so probably has to just take the red out of the game there for him and get the cue ball down the table, but didn't want a double kiss there, and in the end it has turned into a little bit of a disaster for Yuelong. And from the second time of asking, you would very much expect Jack Lisowski to take the opening frame, as he's got 44 points advantage to his name already. 99 are still up for grabs there for him. And guide the cue ball in towards the black here. Has to make sure he misses the red though. And that wasn't the case. And in the end, he's going to have himself positioned with a very difficult black here. I mean, if you're going to find any sort of advantage of that shot, he's going to mean that the cue ball is going to go into the reds here. Therefore, pretty much guarantee himself a position shot. But this black is just really missable there for him, and it's one of those decisions that you have to make. Do you go for it? Do you commit to it and you trust yourself in your ability to actually pot the black, or do you just take it out of the game and make sure that you're still going to be in contention later on? So, you know, as you would probably expect there from Jack, he's gone for the aggressive approach and he's tried to pot the black, but as I say, it was always going to be ever so difficult there for him. And in the end, you know, compromise with the cue ball line, of course, missing the black in its entirety. He's now given a shot away for Yuelong in towards the green pocket, although it's going to be far from easy for him as well to get himself for the first time on the score sheet. And rolls the red in and tried to pot it there with no power at all. In the end, it has worked out against him. Catches the front jaw just about enough there to make sure that the red is going to stay out. And give another chance to Jack. Of course, has to swerve around the green here, making the pot a little bit more tricky there for him. And yeah, going to be straight on this black, which is going to require the plant net that he's been looking for quite some time there, Jack, as he gets himself the third invitation to finally get himself the opening frame on the board. Right now, just roll the black in and have himself positioned as close as possible with the cue ball towards the plant of reds that he's going to try and guide in towards the right corner pocket. So 53 points clear. So can he try and do it right here, right now? I mean, he's gone for the plant. I'll be honest with you, I did say right at the start of it, when he was trying to go for it very much earlier in the frame, I didn't think it was possible there. You know, no changes were made to this plant previously, and therefore, you know, he misses the plant in towards the right corner. Once again there, not giving anything easy away to Zhou, but I think the same red that he missed is going to be possible there for him. So very important for him to finally get himself on the board here for Zhou. And the position is far from ideal there, but as he rolls the red in, probably the problems that you have to try and deal with are going to be the brown, very close towards the left middle, but ultimately just being close enough to the cushion for it not to be possible. And also the red, which is going to be playable for Yuelong right now. Position on towards the black ball cushion. And he's going to commit to it here. So probably the right thing for him to do. With him, of course, trailing by 53 points at the start of this break. He knows that any mistake and the frame is going to be over, so you may as well try and get it out of the way first, whilst you've got a nice little position on it. So now 9 points is the scoring for Zhou Yuelong on the current break here. And once again, a little bit of a question mark over his head is going to be raised, because he has to make a decision whether to go into the bunch of reds or try to play for the red that was available to him. And in the end, he goes right in between there. And in the end, makes a very little contact with the reds, which is going to make sure that he's not completely run himself out of position, but he's going to have to face a very difficult red, and similar to the one that Lisowski has missed himself previously. But of course, very similar to the one that Zhou managed to get in his decider yesterday. Different circumstances, of course, different opposition and different stage of the tournament. Let's see what his decision is going to be. Because doing all the hard work on the red side of you. And just kite the cue ball in towards those reds. Probably, if he judges the pace nicely, he's going to guarantee himself a position on the black. And what a lovely shot to play there. Brilliant in terms of getting the pot in. Barely, but of course it ain't going to matter for him massively. But also just getting such a perfect angle on the black, which is still going to be slightly awkward. Might have to reach for an extension there. And as he now finds himself 36 points behind, with still 59 on the table. Has to be careful that he doesn't touch the brown here. Just going to be quite close. And rolls the black in nicely in towards the right corner. So, as I say, it was all about the red that was on the cushion previously, and the brown that is still positioning himself very close on towards the left middle, but ultimately just about close enough to the cushion. So now Zhou has to make sure that he deals with those four reds, very much all of them in open play, especially with the cannon that he's just made to them. And ultimately has pushed one of those on towards the right cushion, to be fair to him. But he's going to have a nice little angle on the blue to try and maybe do some damage to his stray away. And decides against it. So clearly, just trying to take it at one shot at a time here, getting himself lined up for a couple of those reds in towards the right corner. And still, it's going to be a challenging clearance here for him to try and make sense of. But as he rolls the red in towards the right corner once again here, going to be having a perfect angle on the black this time around. So roll the colour in and get yourself positioned either straight on the red in towards the left corner, or try and pot the one along the cushion there, which is going to be very difficult. And, would have actually expected him to try and make that red more playable there for himself and try and cannon the cue ball into it. As maybe that will be something for him to try and do on the next colour. For now, just rolls the black in towards the right corner, gets himself positioned on the red, into the opposite side of the table. And, you have to go back to those chances of Jack that he's had previously. Had at least 3 of those opportunities to close off the opening frame without Zhou Yuelong putting a single ball there. And in the end, it all comes down to those next 5 or 6 shots. The black transition on towards the red, and he clearly seems to commit to actually try and play in behind the red. And I think a little bit of a change of mind the last second there. Try to cannon the red with a bit of a desperation shot there. He landed himself pretty awkward on the black. So never had enough angle there. So was always going to have a little bit of a thin contact. And it was never going to be enough there for him to actually bring the red into available play. So cross double coming up there, and the break of 46 points. Although it is going to be the highest break in the match as it stands, it's still not going to get him a comfortable lead here in this frame. So still a 50-50 as it stands here. As advantage, minor advantage, of course, will be given to Zhou Yuelong because he has got that safety shot in his locker to try and perform. Wants to miss the yellow though. And I think he's just about has done enough there to make sure that the red is not going to be potable for Jack. But still could have done better had the red missed the yellow there and gone closer towards the ball cushion. And of course, another important thing is, as Jack does indeed try to go for the red, that I previously called probably wasn't available there for him. And if that one was available there for Jack, this one certainly isn't going to be. Because the angle has gone against Zhou Yuelong here. So, of course, both of the players will still require that brown that is currently position onto the left cushion of the table. So still all to play for here, and if you get yourself a nice little position on the red, that doesn't necessarily guarantee you the fact that you're going to be victorious in this opening frame. But Zhou Yuelong there with a strategic shot, getting the cue ball in towards that spine of the blue, pink and black there. In the end, just running short on the pace. And Jack can see enough of that red to certainly try and set it towards the left-hand side of the table. Not sure if the same can be said about the right-hand side of it. Of course, the frame already is going to be one of the longest that we've seen in the quarter-final stage featuring both of these players. You can barely think about the long safety battle that Jack and Karen had yesterday. And of course, same can be said about Yuelong and Tom Ford himself. There's a nice little transition there for Lisowski's point of view. And he's going to have Zhou to require. And try and push that red towards the lower part of the table here. Get the cue ball as close to the ball cushion as it is actually going to be possible there for him. Don't think the double is going to be on. Especially compromised by the fact that the brown is going to be guarding that left jaw of the middle pocket. And in the end, nice little transition and switch of the pace there from Zhou. Gets the cue ball down the table and tries to position the red towards the green pocket, just close enough to the cushion to make sure that it's not going to be available there for Jack. And doesn't look like the same can be said about Lisowski himself. He's tried to push that red towards the spine that I mentioned previously. In the end, he's going to be short on the pace here, it would seem. And the same red is going to be possible here for Zhou. So all about the next couple of shots here for him. As I say, he's having a good look to see if the cue ball can actually get through to this red to try and pot it in towards the right corner. But as it still seems to be the case, well, for me, he doesn't seem to agree with him just yet. He went down for the shot twice there already. Gone back up there. And once again, just goes down for the shot and tries to make sure he's going to cue this one to an absolute perfection, get himself positioned onto the lower part of the table. And in the end, he missed that one by an absolute thin of the margin. And ultimately, though, he's going to have the black position in between the red. So it has gone very close towards the right corner pocket. And let's see if Jack is going to be able... Of course, he's going to be able to get the red in off the cushion. There's no doubt about it. But where is he going to end up on terms of the colour here? And it's going to be fine for the yellow. But as I said previously, it was all about just getting that red in and trying to have some contact with the next colour to try and make sure that the brown is going to be in play. Of course, he's now got 8 points gap to his name, and still has got 80% of the vote who's actually going to make it into the final, even though it has been a bit of a 50-50 frame so far. In the end, he thought about taking the blue on in towards the left corner and decides to go for the yellow instead. So have that one respotted by the referee. So now he's going to be 10 points clear. So of course not enough there for him to not require the brown, which is going to be the frame ball there for him. And I think there was a little bit of an attempt there to get the cue ball in towards the brown off that yellow. In the end, not applying enough of the backspin at that time of asking. And he's going to have himself positioned on this green with a bit of a stretch here required. And has to hammer that one home. Bring the cue ball in towards the brown once again. But even though it was a reasonable effort there, he's still not going to be positioned close enough here to the brown. Of course, it being dead on the cushion, there's not a lot you can do about it in terms of the attacking play. So now being 15 points clear with still 22 points on the table. It is all to play for, and of course it's the brown that Jack needs. And it's a total clearance that Zhou needs once again. And what a way to start off there. Brilliant shot here by Jack, because he managed to get the brown down that spine finally to cannon in towards the black. And of course, the thing about having a 15 points gap is, if you miss the brown twice on the asking, or you catch the black at least once there, not only are you risking of giving the positional shot away, but also it could be quite low on points there for you to actually come back in the frame. So all about the next couple of shots here for Zhou, and not the best possible way for him to start, because he has to apply the pressure and he has to apply the power on the cue ball, therefore making the shot missable. And he's missed it on the first time of asking. Of course, it was very important for him to actually miss it from the left-hand side of it, because if you miss it from the right-hand side, you're going to catch the black, which is going to give 7 points away to your opponent, in comparison to just 4 that he's going to give away right now. But ultimately, can't afford to do it second time of asking, because that will mean that he's going to be behind by 23 points with only 22 still available for play. So just having a look to see if Lisowski's going to be happy with the referee respotting the cue ball. Now, important shot here for him, and he's going to miss it once again here. So obviously was cautious not to apply too much of that trajectory adjustment. And it's going to cost him the frame here, it would seem, because you very rarely see players come back from being a snooker down, especially on just 4 colours remaining. And I think the referee's having a look to see if it's going to be a free ball there. In the end, probably not going to be the case. And Jack is just going to try and have the brown positioned on towards the black spot by canning the brown in towards the black. And nice little shot once again there. So Zhou is going to have himself struggling here to actually catch the brown well enough to make sure that it's not going to give another chance away to Jack, which of course he doesn't really need at this stage. All he has to do is try and hit the brown in consecutive order, and he's going to be able to get this one under his belt. He uses in order. He certainly is now. You know, it was always going to be Lisowski's frame to lose after having that 53 points of a gap. It looked like the clearance was possible there for Zhou. Ultimately run himself out of position on the last red and put himself on the back foot in terms of points. And with a brilliant safety shot played previously by Jack, getting that extra 8 points there from Snookers. It was enough as it stands there, barring Snookers, to get him the opening frame. As he tried to roll the brown previously on towards the yellow pocket. Not successful at that time of asking. And well, I would say a decent effort from Zhou, but I wouldn't really call it decent. It was an effort there, but Jack is still going to be able to see the brown and guide it towards the green pocket to finally get this frame over and done with. Not quite there yet, as he misses the brown by a reasonable amount of margin. And just get the cue ball in towards the brown here for Zhou. Try and send it down the table there with the colour. And to the similar sort of thing that Lisowski has actually managed to get 8 points out of him there. And put the brown down the spine. That way you're going to have both blue and pink to try and protect it. And if you get the brown very close to the pin, of course you make it possible that the cannon is going to be made with the pink itself, which, you know, is going to compromise the control of the cue ball even more there for Jack. So reasonable effort there at that time, getting the brown as close to the ball cushion as he can. But I still think that sort of around the blue is going to be on the table here for Jack. And if that is not going to be the case, he can always just try and use the cushion first. And was cautious there to make sure that the brown wasn't going to cannon in towards the black, which is currently positioning himself very close in towards the right middle. And ultimately, that didn't actually occur there for him at that time. And with the way he's actually managed to get the cue ball and the brown spread out in a nice little way for him. It's going to be a difficult shot for Yuelong to try and manage, in terms of having so much distance in between two of their balls here. And I think he's going to get the brown in the position that you surely have to say Jack Lisowski will manage to take this frame away from him. And just roll this one in. Pretty much don't worry about the pace on the blue ball at all. And he is going to get this frame on the board here. And, you know, a bit of a difficult encounter for him, of course. But it was always going to be pretty snooker from the start of it. And then a little bit of a struggle to actually get through this opening frame and actually get it on his board. Looked like it was very much a controlled frame throughout the majority of it. Yuelong tried to challenge him in the middle of it, but in the end it is going to be Jack Lisowski's to take the opening frame and make himself to lead by 1 frame to 0 there. Nice little start for Jack. And Zhou had to do a little bit better, especially with the chance that he had presented to himself with Lisowski missing a red into the right corner. Zhou has gone on to make a break of 46, which in the end, of course, wasn't enough there. Running himself out of position on the red. Giving that red away a couple of shots later, and the rest was history there. Lovely little snooker for Lisowski to get the Zhou in behind the spine of the blue, pink and black. Getting 8 points at the same time of asking, and in the end, it was always going to be mission impossible for Zhou to actually make that snooker count for him, with only 4 colours still being on the table there for him. So the referee will try and have the reds and colours racked up as soon as possible. Of course, pretty much half an hour it took us to get through the opening frame. So something that you probably wouldn't have actually expected with the way these players actually play, not just against each other. Of course, the head-to-head matches in between the two of them is going to be 4-2 in favour of Zhou Yuelong himself, after beating Jack Lisowski previously at the likes of World Grand Prix. Of course, if you exclude Snooker Shootout, which players have met each other previously. And right now, he's going to be, of course, not a triple crown, but still a massive meeting between the two of them. Zhou Yuelong managed to overcome another favourite for the title at that time at the English Open with Mark Selby, a multiple-time world champion, and he managed to reach the final stage with Mark Cullen at that time, who's, by the way, still in this tournament as well. He's going to have his clash with Watchalong later on. The world number 1 up against the world number 9 there. Of course, they're the only top 10 ranking players left out here. And one of them is going to make it and face either Jack Lisowski or Zhou Yuelong here, of course. But what a story has been for the whole Nation Series, having both of the finalists still in the semi-final stage of the next tournament, with the likes of Lee Bei fan Mark Selby winning Scottish Open and Welsh Open last season. Of course, Neil Robertson and Mark Cullen managed to make it with the English Open and Northern Ireland Open last season, of course. And well, this season, as I say, we had Mark Cullen to win the English Open in a decider match against Zhou Yuelong himself. And now we're ready to get the second frame underway to, well, maybe witness another comeback from Zhou to get himself into the second final this season. Yes, he's still, just like Jack Lisowski himself there, looking for that maiden ranking event title. And Jack starts off with a nice little break-off, to be fair to him. And, very much deserves a nice little rest in his chair to see his opponent struggle to find a safety shot. Having the cue ball so close in towards the ball cushion ain't going to help him at this stage. And decides to go for a tight line there. Cue ball's always going to be sent in towards the right corner and very close in towards the brown there. And, it was a good break-off shot. You may actually say it was a mistake from Zhou, but I think it was a mistake that, was helped on by the fact that Jack had a really nice break-off there at the start. And now gets himself a long shot to try and have a go at in towards the left corner. Missed that one by an absolute mile, though. And in the end, it's a chance that is going to be presented to Zhou here. So needs to make sure he actually takes those chances here. Jack can afford to go for those reds at this stage, without him having that frame cushion early on. And, seen those missed by Zhou on the previous frame a couple of times already. And it looks like he is going to be made 3 out of 3. You have to be doing better than that, to be fair. And, well, I mean, the prediction of Zhou actually taking the match certainly not going to come true if he keeps missing on reds like this. Another chance, another waste there for the Chinese world number 30. And the same red is going to be available to take on into the yellow pocket for Jack himself. The one that you actually can't miss, whatever level of snooker you actually play. And it was always going to be about the position on the next colour, which I don't actually think Jack has played as well as he could have. I mean, if he gets the yellow in towards the right middle, he's going to put all the struggles behind him. But it's a big if there. Of course, the camera still hasn't shown whether yellow come past the blue. And if it ain't going to be the case, of course, he has to go for the green. Therefore, make the long way around for the cue ball. But I think he's going to settle for taking the yellow on in towards the middle. And he's going to make that one stick. So, yeah, it was a bit of a scare there. I'm not sure if Lisowski checked that the yellow was actually possible into the middle previously. But ultimately, he's going to be able to get past that struggle and get himself lined up on this red. In towards the right middle. He gets the red in nicely. And now he's positioning himself perfectly on the blue. Try and guide it in towards the right middle. And once again there, you know, you can make all predictions all you want there. But if Zhou is going to struggle for form, or he's going to struggle with confidence and momentum, you could see this one go very much one-sided there, either way. And of course with Jack having such a promising start there, coming through very much the nervy opening frame. And now getting himself on another break and another chance here. He needed 4 of those in the previous frame in the end to actually come away with a frame win. Can he actually make it stick in less tries this time around? So rolls the red in towards the right corner. But, I mean, I say Zhou hasn't been clinical, but same can be said about Jack here. And the only reason in between the two, and the only difference in between the two is, of course, the fact that Lisowski has managed to get himself a frame on the board. As once again there, he rolled the red in towards the right corner, but he missed it by quite some margin there. Of course, the benefit is going to be the fact that he was playing for the black here. And, you know, he hasn't actually given anything away here to Zhou, which has happened quite a few times in the opening frame. But to be fair to him, it's not like he hasn't given him an easy chance away to the yellow pocket previously, that Zhou has still managed to make the mess of. So just a safety to play. And back to the battle of the safety shots we go. This time it's going to be Jack Lisowski that is actually going to have quite a tight shot here, but unlike Yuelong previously, he managed to avoid the reds from sort of letting any of those out towards the left corner. So played that shot quite nicely and getting the cue ball just above the D line as well. So Zhou himself will have a look for that tight line there on a couple of reds for the plant going in towards the black ball cushion. Trying to send those with quite a bit of traction here. Generate all the power on the cue ball to make sure he's going to reach the balk line there for him. And to try and make sure that from the Reds' point of view, they're going to try and block the pace of each other there. Playing a nice little shot there for himself. And leaving that chance for Jack to try and do a similar sort of thing here. I think he's got a plant himself that he's going to push the red in towards the black ball cushion, but ultimately, you know, with the pace that you would expect him to produce in this shot, the red is going to bounce away from the black ball cushion and get himself in towards the open play. But ultimately, you know, I didn't see it, and obviously Yuelong didn't see it. There was a plant waiting there for Jack Lisowski perfectly in towards the right corner. I mean, there was quite a bit of distance in between the two reds, but as he played this one with an absolute precision and perfection, gets himself lined up for the brown in towards the yellow pocket. And once again there, just bombarding Yuelong with all those chances that he gets to his name. And it's the second one that we've seen Lisowski have in this frame alone here. So roll the red in towards the left middle. Get himself lined up on either blue or black here, but doesn't want to be in between the two of them. And he's just about going to be alright to, I think, reach the cue ball to actually stretch for the black in towards the right corner. And of course, not going to be an issue for him to actually roll the black in. And it was always going to be all about the positional play for the Reds, which I think is still going to be marginally okay on. So 22 points clear and counting. 115 still on the table here as he makes it 107. As it rolls one more red in. And I mean, that plant can be one of the most crucial pots that he's going to have in this semi-final, because you can't really see where it actually is going to go wrong for Jack at this stage. You know, he's already 30 points clear. Needs around 70 points to be absolutely sure that he's going to be the winner of the second frame. And he can easily grab those 40 more points there he's going to be trying and crave for with at least 5 reds that he's going to have available to his name. And of course that goes without saying that Jack is quite a fan of trying to make as many adjustments to the position to make sure he's going to be as perfect as he absolutely can be. Once again, getting that cue ball up the table and lined up for a shot in towards the right corner. So play through the cue ball and try and get the white in towards the black here, getting himself a nice little angle to once again potentially initiate the contact with a bunch of reds. So play through the cue ball here, right now. And nice little shot once again there. Always knew that he had the red available in towards the left corner. Therefore, had to pretty much go into the main pack with just about as much power as he could actually produce on the shot. Therefore, it looks like once again it is going to be Jack Lisowski very much on top here. Something that he could have done in the opening frame. Of course, having that 53 unanswered points at the starting point of it. He had managed to make a couple of mistakes in the progress after then. And allowed Yuelong back into that frame. And rolls the red in towards the left corner once again here. So, can have the cue ball position on towards the black now, into the right corner. So now to go 62 points clear with 75 on the table. So the next red and pink or black combination is going to make sure that it is going to be Snookers required once again for Yuelong. And unlike it was in the previous frame, it doesn't look like Jack is going to leave anything here up for grabs there for him. You know, he had that early miss in the left corner, which Yuelong was unable to capitalize. Of course, not actually seeing that red for a possible chance. But Jack not leading the third invitation this time around, as he's going to try and get himself a century on the board quite early of this match. He's now already managed to go above his highest break of the encounter here, managing to achieve 69 points right now. Still having 51 on the table after this black is going to come in towards the left corner. So been very much clinical with the colours that he's been using throughout this break. Of course, had to start off from being on the 9 points, therefore using 2 reds previously here. So only can manage the clearance of 13 reds, but still going to be more than enough points for him to actually make a century break out of. And roll the pink in towards the middle there, playing those shots with power and therefore with confidence. Getting himself lined up for a red in towards the right corner to try and roll without real pace there. Because the angle was always going to get the cue ball on for the black here. So now 84 points is going to be his break. Though it is 93 that he's actually scored in the entire frame here. And 91, so needs red and expensive colour combination to go with the next yellow. And he's actually going to get him towards that break of 100 points. Of course, managed to have a couple of those in his match against Kyle Wilson yesterday with a brilliant clash in between the two players. The world number 2 was beaten. And as he said himself there, he tried his best and the game certainly was there for him. But in the end, it was just too good of a performance from Jack to actually answer from Wilson's point of view. And it is going to be a century break, which was well deserved at this stage. And it is now a clearance of 125 points, very much on the cards here for Lisowski. Lisowski looking strong as ever. I mean, he certainly is. He has played a perfect game in the second frame so far. The safety play has certainly been this massive improvement ever since that encounter with Wilson yesterday. And, I think the fans are certainly going to enjoy it. With him having all the backup of the crowd yesterday against, of course, the defending champion and the world number 2 at that time. As he rolls the blue in towards the right corner, gets himself positioned for the last 2 of the colours for the 1-2-5 clearance. And a wonderful display in frame number 2 there. And what a perfect start it has been for Jack Lisowski. And right now, it is going to be a 2-0 lead there for him. Yuelong has got it all up ahead of himself. And he needs to win those 2 frames to avoid going 3-1 down at least there in towards the second minute session. But for now, it is Jack Lisowski 2, Yuelong 0. Still all to play for. Amadaras, hello. Hello, mate. How are you doing? And with the odds point of view, you can have a look at them right now. 120 for Lisowski to actually be the winner and progress himself in towards the final. 450 for Zhou to actually do the same sort of thing. And of course, it was 160 and 230 with the respective players before the matches started. But Lisowski getting himself a 2-frame cushion, of course, would have compromised the odds massively in his favour. And ultimately, I did mention that, you know, when he was playing Selby and when he was playing Chepchaya and he was playing Wilson, he always had to overcome from being at least a frame down. And therefore, he put himself under a little bit of scrutiny and pressure. Managed to overcome those issues, to be fair to him. And actually get himself a couple of frames won at that stage. Doing 2 against Chepchaya, 3 against Selby and 3 against Wilson yesterday to go 3-1 clear against every single one of them. And of course closing out the match with Selby with the scoreline of 4 frames to 2. And Wilson had to go just 1 frame extra there for him and close that one by 5 frames to 3. Remember me? I sure do. I absolutely sure do. And well, I mean, it's going to be a very important start now for Yuelong to try and actually get himself some sort of momentum and confidence, because apart from that break of 46 points, I don't actually think he scored any more of the points. Of course, not scoring any more in the second frame there, with it being a wonderful clearance of 125 points on the bounce there for Jack. Yes, now everything ready for the third frame to get underway, and very much exciting times for Jack Lisowski himself. A little bit less so for Yuelong here, though. He needs to start performing well, or he's going to be out before the tournament, before the semi-final stage actually starts there for him. Of course, he hasn't been as familiar to the one-table format as some of the best players on the tour would be, but, you know, you can't really use that excuse against Jack Lisowski, because it's not like he's the multiple-time world champion. He's still fighting to have his first ranking event win. And could he come here at Belfast and try and dispute their absolute domination of Mark Allen and Watchalong previously, spoiled by Kyron Wilson last year? But once again, there it is not the start that Yuelong would have been dreaming about. So just as it was in the first frame, gets himself with a massive struggle with the break-off shot, and this time might have actually managed to get away with it, with the brown being in the way. So let's have a look if Jack is going to try and attempt that red. Of course, the camera still hasn't shown whether there's going to be an option there for him, as it doesn't seem to be the case. And you know what? He's just going to say, yeah, you can have that red in towards the left middle, which I can't see, but I'll try and punish you with a brilliant shot in towards the right corner. I mean, the cue ball was dead on the ball cushion, and yet he rolled the red with an absolute precision. And even until the red has dropped, he knew that that was in, and he was already walking to take the next shot off the black here. I mean, if you're going to see the formidable form of Jack Lisowski, this might be it here. Bit of a scrappy frame at the start there, but seems to be running away with it ever since. Gets himself in amongst the reds, and what a perfect position now for him to try and go 3-0 up here. Maybe he's actually going to be compromised by the fact that the black is going to go in towards the red here. But I think the same red is going to be possible there for him in towards the left corner, so I'll try and take that one out of the game right here, right now, and make sure it's going to be as smooth as it can ever be there for him up until this stage. Gets himself on the black into the same corner here, so the angle on the cue ball, he's going to get the white onto the top part of those reds. In the end, coming a bit short on the pace though, so has to make the line adjustable here for the cue ball, and manages to use the main pack of reds very, very nicely there to himself. Gets the black lined up in towards the right corner this time around. And just having a little check to see if that red is going to be possible to try and get on top side of it. Once again, takes the black in towards the corner, and you know, it's a perfect position there for him to, if not make the maximum break, then certainly try and run away with it in this frame. You know, started off with a brilliant long shot in towards the right corner. And it is going to be now the shot off the black in towards the same corner this time around. So just having a look to see if he's going to be able to get on that red in towards the left middle, which is probably going to be the last of the reds actually available to him right here, right now. You know, the pink is going to compromise one of those reds to try and take in towards the right corner, but I think Jack just about managed to get himself with a good enough positional play on this red in towards the left corner. I think he's going to have to yield of that black pursuit there at that time, so get himself lined up for the blue, and as he runs himself perfectly on the top side of it, I'm just going to have to be a bit careful right now as he has finished the zone of easy reds, barring the one is currently on the top part of the table, and he's actually considering trying to take that one on, meaning he has to take the yellow first in towards his own pocket. And after careful consideration, that is going to be the shot that he actually takes on right now. So play the yellow in, try and cannon the cue ball in towards the brown. Once again, they're played with absolute precision there. Let's just have a little look, see if the red is going to be available for him to try and get the cue ball pretty much as slow as possible and maybe stun it for the blue. In the end, Pink was actually playing for the pink there, so maybe that was the line that he was checking there. So now 36 points clear, 99 on the table. Of course, we've gone way beyond that maximum zone pursuit, but it's probably the last thing that you have to do when you're playing so well in a semi-final up against the opponent that so far has been very much struggling to find himself in the semi-final here, and certainly has been a while since we've seen him whitewash in the high stage of the tournament. I think it's, well, maybe we're going to be halfway there after this frame is finished, but as far as I can remember, I don't think I've seen a whitewash in the quarter-final stage, let alone the semi-final of this season so far, and of course let alone from the world number 29 up against the world number 30, the player that I actually predicted to be probably on the receiving end of things slightly based on his form yesterday. I thought he was way too inconsistent, but he's managed to prove all of his haters and all of his doubters, including me here, wrong in this 2 frames and a half as he plays another beautiful shot here, gets himself lined up for a red into the left corner, takes it with some precision and power, and once again has got all of those reds available to his name. So, you know, around 8 of those potted, still 7 to go, and no signs of slowing down here for Jack. Another break of 50 plus now to get to that, to add to that century count on the previous time of asking. And could he actually make it? 2 centuries on the bounce here. I think it'll be a massive waste if he doesn't, from the position that he finds himself in. Still having 75 points on the table, so not quite over the line in terms of winning the frame, but surely just a matter of time with the position that he actually has got ahead of himself. So roll the red in towards the right middle, get himself lined up for the blue, and just about the right side of it. Played that one really well, and of course 67 points is the gap now for him. And it looks like another frame that Yuelong has to spend the majority of in his chair. You know, very much, you could say, through the fault of his own, because it was a horrible break, but, you know, with the way and with the actual red that Jack managed to pull off there in towards the right corner, surely full kudos has to go to him in that performance. And in that point of view, once again gets himself with a perfect queuing shot there on the wrong side of the blue, but as everything seems to be going his way, he's got a red waiting there for him onto the top part of the table if he needs it. And it could be the quick one at this rate. Well, I mean, it has to be an answer from Yuelong, and it has to be now or never, because if you go 4-0 down, no matter how well you're going to play, it's just the wrong side for you to actually encounter, because if you're going to have Jack Lisowski, one thing you can't afford to do is let him go 3-0 or 4-0 down in the match that he's going to be first to 6 here, because with the way his game actually is here, and even though he wasn't playing necessarily his best against Wilson, he was always getting the chances there, both against Wilson and Selby, with those being the highest players in the ranking phase that he had to face throughout this campaign. He always was getting those chances, and he was always managed to take at least 50% of them. Therefore, when he had that gap, he was able to get himself over the line as he gets himself within touching distance of another century break here. So the red and the black will actually make it there for him, but as he gets himself on for the lower side of the blue here. He's going to make it 98. So the next red and, well, any colour after that, he's going to mean that he's going to be another brilliant performance here from Jack Lisowski, and back-to-back centuries, of course. Barely makes the red in, but I think everyone, well, probably excluding Zhou Yuelong now, would like to see a nice little century break to entertain the fans even more and roll the red in towards the right corner, follow up with the blue. Brilliant performance and absolutely flawless from Jack Lisowski, especially if you talk about frames number 2 and 3. You know, he's managed to produce a break of 125 in the previous time of asking, and he's on course to go that one step above that and try and make it a 1-3-1 clearance. So absolutely brilliant from Jack, and you could actually run out of superlatives there for him. I don't think we've seen any of the players. You know, Judd Trump was playing very well against John Higgins, but even he didn't manage to have 2 centuries on the bounce there. Once again, perfectly lines himself up for the blue in towards the right middle, and the pink is going to be on the brown spot, but once again, perfect positional control from Lisowski, just making sure that he's going to be on the wrong side of the blue that time around. Absolutely rattles the pink in, and he's going to run himself out of position on the black here. So a little bit of complacency, but it's something that he certainly can afford with a 1-2-4 break here. Not quite a clearance, as he tries to do a little bit of a double in towards the green pocket, and it is going to be enough there for him to absolutely destroy Zhou Yuelong in those opening 3 frames. And you have to go back to that opening frame, and had Zhou managed to get himself on that red into the right corner, what a different story could it have been. In the end, it's a perfect response from Jack, and the breaks of 1-2-5 and 1-2-4 to get himself a very healthy 3-0 lead. It is now Jack Lisowski 3, Zhou Yuelong 0, and all to play for in the last frame of this mini session for Zhou Yuelong now. All to, well, I don't know, all to enjoy now for Jack, because if he manages to take that form into the 4th frame. And the one thing I will say, though, about Jack himself is he has been improving steadily, even over the course of this match, because in the opening frame, as I said, he needed 4 chances to get himself over the line, compromised by some of those mistakes at the start of it. Ultimately, he only needed 2 of those chances in the 2nd frame. He only needed 1 red in towards the right corner, which still would have been a nice little safety shot for him actually to play, had it been the different circumstances and not the break-off. He still manages to knock the brilliant red in towards the left corner, and then all of a sudden, that's the last thing you're actually going to see of Zhou Yuelong out there. And it is now Jack Lisowski 3 and Zhou Yuelong 0. I mean, I say it's all to play for Zhou Yuelong, but that's only going to be the case if he wins that frame. Because if you go 4-0 down, I mean, where do you go from there? To try and go on an absolute mud run, which, you know, Zhou is capable of doing. Remember, he was 7-2 down to Mark Allen. He managed to win 6 frames on the bounce there and actually go 8-7 ahead there in the final of the Home Nations series previously. But ultimately, I mean, Mark Allen, I don't think was showing signs of this brilliance there of a play. Zhou loses in the next one. He's in big trouble. I still think he's in big trouble right now, but he's going to be dead and buried there. Probably, if he's going to lose it, the 4th one. And you may as well not turn up for the 2nd session, because there's one thing trying to recover a 7-2 lead off against Mark Allen there. It's a very different thing for you to try and recover a 4-0 lead against Jack Lisowski. Can't really compare the 2 players anyway, but, you know, Allen was struggling for the form slightly, and he was just able to overcome those struggles from Zhou there. And in the end, he had these glimpses of brilliance, but certainly didn't have back-to-back centuries there. And I mean, the longest part about the match so far probably has been the breaks in between the frames. Because when it comes down to the frame action, it has been Jack flawless Lisowski. Once again, gets himself a break-off shot, and the next shot surely has to be trying to pot a red off a break-off and get himself on another century that way. Not going to be the case this time around, of course, because he's not going to repeat the famous Barry Hawkins break-off at the Crucible against Mark Arthur, when he managed to pot the red in towards the right middle and get himself off to a brilliant start to that match. To the frame, of course, was losing 1-9 at that time at the World Championship in 2016. So not quite that perfect of a start here for the 4th frame for Jack. But still a nice little break off to make sure that Zhou is not going to have any sort of invitation there to his name. To try and be off to a great start. And once again there, I mean, it was a good shot from Jack previously, but what a shot this is. So this is better from Zhou's point of view. And he has to try and make sure that these shots are going to be more or less the same there for him. As he gets the cue ball in behind the brown in the perfect manner there. Barely a centimetre in between the two of those. And, you know, with the way the reds have spread out off the break-off from Jack, he has to be careful and very much, well, I mean, careful is probably the advert for me to use. The adjective, I should say. And sends the cue ball in towards the left-hand side of the table. I mean, if he does it, the perfect way for him to get himself out of this situation probably is going to be to try and use the black ball cushion first. But the only way you're actually going to do that is using the right-hand side cushion and doing a 2-cushion escape there on yourself. In the end, he's managed to minimize the damage there to himself, but I still think he's going to be struggling here to try and stop Yuelong from taking a chance in towards the right corner. It's maybe the fact that he has to bridge over a couple of reds. He's actually going to get him out of this idea. And after quick thinking there, just sends the cue ball up the table there and gives the turn back to Jack here. So, I mean, the problem is that's how he lost the 2nd frame. By giving a chance away off that blunt in towards the right corner, which Lisowski managed to make it 1-2-5 break off. And, of course, in the previous frame, it left him pretty much nothing there. Barring a very difficult raiding towards the right corner, which Lisowski managed to convert a 1-2-4 century from. So once again, that just looking for that little plant in towards the left corner. Getting a nice little favourable kiss off the green as well. And getting that cue ball away from the danger area. Of course, was very much planned there for it to try and take that plant in towards the left corner. A little bit less so with getting that perfect kiss on the green. Pushing the colour towards its own pocket here and ultimately pushing the cue ball as close as it's ever going to get there towards the yellow pocket there for himself. And, well, Zhou has to try and make his way out of this. And it doesn't look like he's actually going to have anything easy lined up in front of him here, because you can try and send the cue ball down the table and try and bring it back up the table there from one of those reds on the left-hand side of the table, but you're always going to struggle with having all of those reds positioned in a way that Lisowski is not going to be able to get through to at least one of them in towards the right corner, presumably. So, once again, little hesitation there and confusion on the face of Zhou, just letting us know that he still hasn't got a clue on which shot he's going to have to play. Considering maybe rolling the cue ball in towards the lower part of the table there, but that way you're going to have a couple of reds lined up there with a difficult cut for Jack, but it's going to be a guarantee there for him. But it may be just one of those shots that he has to take on. And in the end, well, it looks like he managed to get a nice little line there for himself and get the cue ball in towards the ball cushion. So just about getting the perfect edge of that red and sending it towards the right hand cushion, ricocheting enough there to go beyond the reaching point of Jack Lisowski. And Jack himself, well, has got, of course, a lot easier of a safety to play, but still has to be very careful not to catch too much of the edge of the red into the left corner to actually have himself positioned for the next shot here. He has a little look to see if he's going to be able to send the cue ball down the table in the way that he's actually going to get it safe and, well, maybe try and aim one of those reds towards the right corner pocket. And what a shot he's played. Perfect shot there for him. I mean, where's the cue ball going to end up? Is he going to cannon itself into the green? And I mean, just when you don't need a bit of luck, it just comes your way there. And I mean, it's a perfect shot from Jack Lisowski, but I mean, what a cannon he got on the green to make sure he's going to have himself lined up on a perfect shot there and get the line of the cue ball to be sent in towards the lower part of the table once again here. And I mean, if you go with the way the opening 3 frames have gone, especially with the trajectory of the game improving for Jack Lisowski massively there, it looks like it could be another frame there, one in a single visit to the table. Of course, getting himself 5 points on this break, and finally, you know, it took him 3 shots to get the cue ball perfectly down the black ball cushion, and now he's going to be able to have some more of the expensive points to his name. He's already having a 12 points lead in his advantage, and the only struggle is he's going to have obviously right now is going to be the fact that the black is still not possible into the right corner, which is not a problem in itself, but also just trying to eliminate that red to make sure he's going to have more reds available there to his name. May actually have to sacrifice sending the black underneath its own spot here. And I mean, I think Jack was trying to have himself an angle on this red. That way he's going to keep the black here. Of course, all of the color spots are currently taken, with them restoring the green back on his spot there on the previous couple of shots, and now being 20 points clear. Ultimately, the referee could actually just about spot the black onto its own spot there. And Jack is going to be able to get back to normal business and gets himself 21 points clear and counting. Rolls the black in towards the right corner and gets himself positioned in behind a couple of those reds. Of course, I think we'd have liked to see the cue ball a bit further up the table, with it just allowing him to go for the black with an easier cut-off point. Now 29 points clear, still doesn't seem to run out of reds anytime soon. As goes 36 points clear, putting the black really nicely towards the right corner. So, you know, in terms of actually, if you talk about the reds and the way he's going to be able to win this frame, he's got 3 more available in towards the right corner, and he's got 1 more available in towards the left middle, which you can try and take advantage of. Right now, just getting himself lined up on this black in towards the right corner. So now 37 points is going to be his advantage until he manages to pot the black. Going to convert that into 44 points advantage. Once again, has to reach for a rest for, you know, I think only the 2nd time of this match. And try and guide the red in towards the right corner. Get himself positioned on the black once again there with a sign of angle, which is going to get him up the table and lined up for a couple of reds I mentioned previously in towards the right corner, but never take the eye off the pot there. And in the end, it is going to be a chance given away to Zhou Yuelong. The break of 44 points wasn't quite as perfect as it could have been. And, you know, if you catch the jaw of the pocket first, you're always going to be in trouble there off the rest shot. And that time, he just caught Jack Lisowski a bit unaware there. And taking the eye off the pot is never a good thing, especially in the semi-final stage. And this could be a lifetime for Zhou Yuelong to try and hold on to. Gets himself on towards the yellow now, in towards the right middle after a favourable contact there with the cheapest for the colours. Ultimately still having more than enough points on the table to try and catch Lisowski here, unlike what it was in the first frame, I should say. Of course, frames 2 and 3 there had him sat in his chair throughout the majority of the contest. And it's only the 2nd frame, of course, where he's actually going to score any of those points. But yeah, it doesn't seem like he's actually going to be anywhere near enough the red there in towards the right corner. I mean, unless he was playing for the plant, which does seem to be very much difficult for him to try and pull off here. No, he wasn't playing for the plant. He's going to try and attempt to double in towards the right middle, and he's going to miss that one as well. And where's the red going to end up there? Probably in a favourable position for Zhou himself. And, you know, the chance certainly was worth a lot more than 5 points there. He's going to come back in once again here for Zhou. You know, he knew he missed that double in towards the right middle straight away there. And Jack just sending a couple of those reds in the open play, getting the cue ball up the table yet again here. And 39 points is the gap there in favour of the man from England. And 91 points is still the number of points you can actually score here. Left on the table with sort of 7 reds still being in play as Yuelong goes for a double. In the end, I think he's going to be quite lucky not to give the red that he's played for away to Jack, but still going to give a mid-range shot away. I wouldn't even call it a long shot. Maybe we can call that a long shot there. It's just about marginal in terms of the terminology. But it says it needs another chance, which Yuelong should have been anywhere near about. Trying to give this one away to Jack. And I mean, he's played that one. Clearly trying to have as much protection there for his name as possible. And well, just like it was on the previous shot, this time it's Jack getting the yellow in between the target red in towards the right corner. And the cue ball itself. So, you know, he's played that one clearly with intention of not as much making the red in towards the right corner, as trying to get that cue ball back up the table. And match time was only just reached, an hour of playing time since this actually has started. Of course, if you take the breaks into account as well, you're going to get yourself into pretty much the 90-minute mark that we could be edging over towards. And yeah, was lucky there. And once again there, second time there, Jack has raised the hand of apology there and the single shot. And Zhou had to use the cushion first to his name. Try and get himself lined up for the red. The end managed to probably limit the damage, but still leave the red away for Jack to try and take in towards the right middle. As you know, the best case scenario and the worst case scenario, you can try and use the same red, get the cue ball up the table, which is what he's done. Still having that gap of 39 points to his advantage. And Zhou can try and take the red in towards the left corner. As if he just plays this one away from the main pack of the table here and gets the cue ball in behind the green, he can try and put some more pressure on Jack here, because he's going to have a lot fewer reds there to try and deal with. And in the end, Zhou has played that shot pretty well there to his name. Tries to get the cue ball down the table once again there, but pushes the red in towards the right corner. Ultimately needs to have the green and blue come to his rescue. And may have actually managed to do that. And, you know, it was a little bit of trouble for Jack on the previous shot, but if it was a little bit of trouble for him, it is going to be a lot of trouble for Zhou here. You know, eliminating those reds into the left-hand side of the table is always going to leave one of the player with that red very close towards the black ball cushion and very much right underneath the cue ball here, which is going to mean if you catch it too thin, you're going to be in all sorts of trouble here. Ultimately, Jack, once again there, I think his safety play has been absolutely immaculate so far. Very much like to see the stats for that in the mid-session interval, which is going to come exactly and after this frame. And it's still the question whether we are going to have some sort of contention for Yuelong to try and actually challenge Jack Lisowski here. Or is it going to be Jack absolutely running away with it and having a 4-0 lead to try and hold on to it? Still no sign that Zhou has actually made his mind up on the shot that he's going to have to play. Sending the cue ball down the table is, of course, a necessity here. But if you're going to try and roll the cue ball in towards the reds on the right-hand side of the table, or you're going to try and get the thin edge of the red, set it in towards the left-hand side of the table here. This could be the shot, of course, which costs Yuelong a chance in this frame, and therefore any sort of chances in the match, you would think. It wasn't an important shot, and it took more than a minute on it. Ultimately, you know, he could have taken a second on it, and it still would have done just as much damage there to him, having all of those reds available to Jack to take in towards the left corner. And what a way for him to actually get this chance there in another frame. 90% is the safety success there from Jack Lisowski, 65% from Yuelong. So as I say, not quite 100% from Jack's point of view, but still very much second to none there in terms of the mistakes that he's been making. 40 points clear and counting as he finds himself on another break here. And, you know, if he just makes the cue ball way around the 4 reds that he's got available now to him, he's going to be certainly a way into a 4-0 lead there for himself. Very nice performance so far, pretty much flawless, apart from that rest mistake in towards the right corner, maybe a couple of shots that he's missed at the early stages of the match. Ultimately, he's managed to improve his form and just become better and better as the match has gone on. And, you know, just a couple of shots away from actually making that 4-0 lead a reality there. And, you know, when you managed to knock out the world number 2 yesterday, I don't think you would have dreamt about having that 4-0 lead today here in the semi-final. And very much not just 1 feet away, but 1.5 feet away in towards the final stage, which, you know, he hasn't made too many times previously. Once again, his search for the ranking event title might actually take a dramatic swerve in his favour, as right now he's ahead by 61 points, 67 on the table, so all about this red to make sure that Zhou Yuelong is actually going to need snookers here, and it is going to be the case. And, yeah, well, I mean, it was probably over at 3-0 for Zhou Yuelong, but it is certainly going to be over at this stage. 4-0 lead of a gap there for you is going to be pretty much an impossible job to try and recover. You know, 62 points. There's no way for him back in this frame as Lisowski rolls the pink in. And right now tries to get himself not quite a century break. I don't think it's going to be available there for him because he's got a break of 30 points with 51 still on the table after this black. But ultimately, it certainly is going to be another frame win for Jack, and absolutely demolition job here so far. The opening frame was the only one that Zhou had any sort of chance of actually having himself back in the equation there, and ever since it has been a bit of a demoralizing stuff there for him, and all sorts of emphasis from Jack's point of view as he rolls the red in towards the left middle and follows up with the blue into the same pocket, just absolutely flawless. And I mean, another stat that I would like to see is the average shot time. Surely it has to be way beyond the 20-second mark. He's already one of the quickest players on the tour here this season. I think he's on top 3 after the likes of Marco Fu and Ronnie O'Sullivan here, level with Chip Chayanu there. But he's certainly not going to be level in terms of performance level at this stage. Once again, rolls the black in towards the right corner. So the break of 57 points. So, which of course is going to mean that he's managed to make 3 breaks of 50 plus there. All of those coming in second, third, fourth frames. After just managed to be a bit short on that in frame number 1. But ultimately converting 2 of those 50 plus breaks into the century break there with 124 and 125 points there for his liking. Rolls the brown in with absolutely no effort. Gets himself lined up for the blue in towards the right corner. And I mean, if you made that one, you may as well just back it there from Zhou Yuelong's point of view, because it is certainly going to be an absolute domination time for Jack Lisowski as he gets himself a 4-0 lead. And it's everything to try and figure out there for Zhou Yuelong in this intermission break. Probably going to be the most enjoyable part of this semi-final so far. And I mean, when he has to come back, he has to try and come back as a different player, because we've only seen one player at the opening stage of it, and it has been Jack Lisowski there. Intermission break now to follow, and in 15 minutes time we'll see if he's going to have 2 players performing, or it's still going to be Jack Zhou for him to try and finish off and make himself the player into the final there to face either Chomp or Mark Allen later on tomorrow. 15 minutes break, and we'll see you around till then. So then, ladies and gentlemen, after a quick break of 15 minutes there, it is now Zhou Yuelong and Jack Lisowski making their way out onto the arena. And, well, Zhou Yuelong has managed to enter the arena first there, but he's probably the only stat that he's going to be the first in terms of his performance here so far. And he has to be off to a good start here with the break-off. You know, we all know what happened in frames number 1 and 3 after his break-off shot, but this time around he manages to be somewhat clinical with it. And gets himself out of danger zone this time. Of course, in frame number 3, what followed up was a break of 124 points from Lisowski himself. And in the opening frame, it was a chance that gifted around 44 points there at that time to Lisowski here. So he's not going to have that freedom this time around. And he's going to have to find a good safety shot himself. And in the end, don't think he's managed to play this one as well as he could have. You know, Joey's going to have a look to see if he's going to have some sort of availability there in terms of trying to go for the aggressive start. And, I mean, if he can get through to that red, which is going to be pretty much alongside the black ball line, he's going to be able to try and pot here and get around the black, get the cue ball up the table. But only if the angle's going to be there for him. But I'm not even sure that he can actually see the red. So whatever it was, he decides to play the safety option, which was always going to be the cross double to send the red in towards the pink. And the main bunch of reds. And judged the trajectory pretty well there. Didn't judge the pace as well though. Could have had the cue ball in behind the brown. And instead going to leave that red that I was mentioning previously away to Jack Lisowski. And of course he makes it. I mean, that's been the story of a brilliant performance here so far of Jack himself, and he was always about taking those chances and getting himself through to the high value breaks here, as he's got one lined up here once again as he rolls the brown in towards the yellow pocket. So blinking you'll miss it. It's not Ronnie O'Sullivan, it's Jack Lisowski trying to perform his best snooker of you know, potentially of his career. I know he's managed to get to the final a few times previously, but I can't really remember him doing that off a whitewash there, which is going to be on the card here, especially if he wins this frame. I think the whitewash is going to be more likely for it to happen than, you know, for that event not to occur. With the way that Lisowski has been playing with those previous 4 frames. And at the start of the 5th one, gets himself lined up on the pink in towards the left corner. And has the cue ball travel on towards the left-hand cushion. And once again there, hello everyone in the chat, and well, the referee has to take a little bit of time to try and get the pink sorted in amongst those reds. I think she can try and fit it to make sure that it's actually going to be on its spot here, and therefore, I mean, not sure if Jack is going to be happy with that. because I'm actually pretty sure that's going to compromise the red. And, well, is it actually going to be possible there in towards the right corner? And if that's not the case, you'll have to go for the long rest and extension to try and send the cue ball down the table there for the red in towards the left corner instead. But that shot, I mean, he'll try and avoid that as much as he can, simply for the fact of you'll have the cue ball go into the main bunch of reds, and therefore it's going to be really difficult for it to control. Is this first 6 frames even? Indeed it is. Absolutely is. Once again, Evan I should say. And once again, nice little shot off Lisowski. So he could have just about seen enough of that red to try and send it in towards the right corner. Gets himself lined up for the shot of the blue in towards the left middle. I mean, it could be first to 2 now, because, I mean, if Lisowski wins still frames on the bounce, the match could be over before he actually starts for Zhou. And he still is yet to start in terms of the points that he scored. I mean, his performance has been dreadful in terms of stats here. As we've seen, his safety play is going to be 60%, and I think he's going to go even more down after the shot that he's played. That has actually allowed Lisowski to take the long red in towards the right corner. You know, his spot success has been so good that he's only managed to score 51 points up to these points in the 4.5 frames. Very much 90% of them coming in the opening frame there, when he managed to score 46 points of the single break. And ever since, it just has been such a domination and such a free-flowing snooker from Jack here. Once again, just making that look so effortlessly there, even though it was a difficult transition for Jack to get the cue ball around the black here and have himself lined up for a shot of either left corner or left middle there. It depends if he wants to take the pink or the black on. I think in the end you'll have to settle for probably a pink if it's available, because it's just going to be easier for him to find himself on the next red. And I mean, it was going to be easier if he actually was going to have himself guaranteed a position on the red. Can he zero Zhou with this frame? Well, I mean, it's all about if he can make this shot stick, because if he can make the red now, he's already 25 points clear. I would say that's very much likely. He gets the red in towards the left middle. And once again, nicely played, but the cue ball is going to be pacey here. So was he playing for the blue? Was he playing for the pink here? Instead, he's going to have a perfect position on the pink. So he'll probably assume that he was playing for the pink here. And if you misjudge the pace by a bit, you could have always had the blue as his backup option. Meanwhile, it's got the red in towards the left corner now. So, I mean, I wouldn't say it's easy. I wouldn't say there's a definitive answer to that question. I think he's likely to do it, because can't watch live stream and the red spread good. Not really. I wouldn't really say that. Average shot time, by the way, 16 2/3 there of a second for Jack Lisowski in the semi-final. That is an incredible result. You've got 2 reds available there to him. I wouldn't say you've got any more than that. He's just spotted one of them. But, you know, that goes without saying that he can actually always try and spread more reds out. I mean, to be honest with you, I say he's got 2 reds. He's got 1 more after this one, but the way he's actually positioned himself on this pink, probably got something else now that I wasn't aware of. Because there's no way that he can actually make it onto the red that I mentioned previously. And there's your confirmation there, so you can just about get through to the red that is going to be underneath the pink, which didn't look like it was possible. And the great advantage of that shot is A, it frees up more reds for him, but B, he's going to have the black available to try and play in towards the right middle if he wants it. And obviously the answer to that question is no, he doesn't want it. You'll have the cue ball sent back up the table there towards the blue. Once again, has himself lined up for a shot in towards the left middle. You know, he can't say that this was a straightforward position for him to get 40. Why is he not counting points here? I don't know what just gone on there, but he's on 30 points here, of course. And making that 45 here off the blue. And right now, he still has 91 on the table. And, you know, it was an easy position for him to actually make his way through, simply for the reason of the expensive colours not being available. He could have used the pink a couple of more times than he did, but ultimately just deciding to give himself well, ultimate control there as he puts 2 reds with 1 shot there. I mean, it almost was like he was playing exhibition stuff because there literally was a move there. You know, when you try and do it, like, he basically brought the cue towards the left-hand side of the table massively there, like it was a swing, like it was a racket or something. In the end, he gets 2 reds in with 1 shot, which of course is going to be a huge advantage there to him if he makes the pink. When, I mean, at this stage, when he plays shots like that, you shouldn't even say there if he makes this pink, because the way he's been playing, he's going to make everything that goes his way. Once again, 53 points clear, 75 on the table. We could be looking here at a potential whitewash and certainly be a single frame away from it, as he has a little stretch now to take a red in towards the left corner. And, I mean, I said we could be looking at it. And he's not going to fluke this red because he's going to stop. Surely he's going to stop there for him. It's going to stop for Yuelong there. He's not going to stop for him. Nearly fluked the red into the same pocket that he actually was trying to play it into. And damn, Zhou is looking at 6-0. What he was a couple of seconds ago. Probably ain't it anymore, because at least he's going to get himself a chance on the board. The reds are actually positioned quite nicely there for him. And when it comes to Yuelong, it's usually his sort of one of his strengths actually. Table time, as you can see, less than a quarter there for Yuelong and more than 75% for Jack Lisowski here. So the first couple of shots are probably going to dictate the play here of Yuelong. Is he going to get himself a chance? Once again there, just like it was in the previous frame, in the opening frame, he was 53 points at that time. But to be fair to Zhou, he had a much more difficult position up ahead of him there. And powers the blue in, so one of those shots that is going to be a little bit of a confidence boost as well. You know, it wasn't easy to actually make it with some power in towards the green pocket. Still now trails by 47 points, still 67 on the table. So that aspect of the game is not going to be an issue. What is going to be an issue though is the fact that even though he has got 2 more reds, relatively easy play, as he barely makes the first one in though, in towards the left corner. But ultimately, it's all about getting the red that is just above the black ultimately being blocked into both of the corner pockets, and therefore compromising the black as well. I think it usually should be an absolute easy job there for Yuelong. And when he's playing anywhere near his best, but probably not in the circumstances that we could be talking right now. Tries to hammer the pink in towards the right middle and gets himself up with a little bit of a difficult shot now to have a go at the red into the left corner, obviously realizing that he can try and take the black now in towards the right corner and fix that issue without it even starting there for him. In the end, he has decided to try and do that, so goes around the black, puts the red nicely, and as I say, all about the next couple of shots here. Has to take the red out of the game there and try and put it into the position that he's actually going to be able to pot it from. I mean, I don't know what he was trying to do there, because he hasn't done the task that he's still yet to do. It's not like he's 50 points clear himself. He's trailing by 32 points, and he still doesn't seem to get anywhere near the task that I mentioned. I mean, it's really do or nothing now, because if he gets his red in now and he doesn't do anything with the penultimate red, which is very close to the black still, he's going to have to find himself in a similar scenario to the previous frame. So clearly, that's been the plan all along here for him. So get the black and try and get himself a little cannon on the red, which, to be fair, he feels like he doesn't need it. So maybe the red is going to be able to be played in towards the left corner, which, I mean, I'm surprised why Lisowski hasn't thought about it earlier, because he could have had that issue resolved for him. And therefore, had the black freed up of any sort of captivity of the reds. And yeah, in the end, it was possible there for Yuelong, and the camera goes on to Lisowski as if to say, what didn't you do that earlier in the match? And right now, well, it's a straightforward clearance from here, you would think there, but it's a weird shot that he's played, because, you know, surely he tried to go for a red in towards the right middle there. Instead, he has himself lined up for a shot, which would be a lot more difficult than the couple of ones that he's missed previously in towards the green pocket. I mean, this is one of those silly errors, I would say, because if you get yourself in a safety battle, A, you're not really going to have a massive advantage, and also you're trailing by 16 points. You've been receiving pretty much all the tough luck and all the problems of the safety battles earlier. And well, if you go for the red now, you're going to be very fortunate to actually make this one. And as I say, you went for it. Probably was the right shot to go for, with the red ricocheting away from the jaws of the pocket. And now it's going to be a safety battle, but at least you had a little shot there, getting the cue ball down the table as well to get yourself some hint of a safety play. And now back to Zhou it goes, the turn. And just having a little look to see if he's going to have anything lined up with this red. By the way, thank you very much for nearly 200 people watching, 191. Feel free to hit the like on the stream and subscribe to the channel if you're new or you enjoy content like this. As I say, we're going to have Mark Cullen up against Watchalong in the evening session, which, you know, very much looking forward to. Is Lisowski winning this race? It's a 50-50 still. He's 16 points clear, but you know, he's got this red battle to try and go with. But I mean, you asked me that 5 seconds ago, I say probably it's a 50-50. Now it's going to be 75-25 because he's got a nice little chance to take this red in towards the yellow pocket. Of course, he ain't going to need the blue, which has been cannoned into the problematic play, but he's missed that one by quite some margin. In the end, was always going to get the cue ball down the table to try and play for the black there, so not going to give that one away. At least with an easy shot, and with the way that the red has bounced away from the pocket, he's going to be pretty much mission impossible for Zhou to even attempt to pot it. But I think being covered up into both green and yellow pockets here by those respective colours. So right now, just try and spread those out on towards the cushion of the table. And of course, anything you do, don't leave the double on there for Jack. And I mean, just as I say, anything you do, don't leave a double on. I mean, is that not a perfect double situation for Jack to take on? He can afford to do that with a 4-0 gap and 16 points on the board. And he will take this one brilliantly there. So, you know, if you had Lisowski winning this frame 5, a couple of shots now, and you might start to celebrate. Because what a double now to get himself a potential 5-0 lead here. I mean, talk about confidence here. And Zhou Yuelong has to settle for taking the chair there. But I did say, might want to celebrate if he gets the colour in. And he didn't get it. So, I mean, from sublime to the ridiculous there. He takes the green in towards the middle and he misses it. And that might just actually give another lifetime away to Zhou Yuelong. And, well, I mean, he's got 6 colours, which is all he's going to need here for a frame win. And wants to be on the wrong side of the green, though. And, yeah, he's going to be facing with a difficult shot now. So, 15 points he's behind. Obviously, 25 still on the table. And green to be taken on in towards the right middle. Tries to get as much spin as possible on the cue ball, but still going to have himself a bit of an awkward shot now. Ultimately, still going to have a chance of potting the brown. With the blue being out of position, it may actually not be the worst angle there for him to try and play for it. But in the end, does need an extension at least here to try and remain in his break. And just has a little look to see if it's going to be sort of easy for him, but yeah, he's going to have to bridge over this blue and making this shot a lot more awkward than it could have been. And in the end, he makes it brilliantly there. So is he going to be on the blue and is he going to be compromised by the pink? And unfortunately for him, both of the answers to this question is going to be yes there. So, you know, anywhere but there, right over the pink, still being 8 points down. Of course, if you leave the blue away, you can only tie for the respot, and this is difficult there. Do you take the shot on? Surely, if you miss this one, there's going to be no more second chances given there to him. It's all about the shot that he tries to make. Roll the blue in towards the left corner. And, you know, you may as well stick to it with a 4-0 deficit, and you have to make those shots stick, and he has been making them for the majority of the campaign. And, you know, he had a similar shot to that, you know, 4-3 situation against Tom Ford yesterday, where he had to take the rating towards the right middle, played it with absolutely no safety there. And he managed to make it stick, and in the end managed to win the match. And as I say, with a 4-0 down, you may as well take those and hope it sticks for you. But when you hope it sticks, sometimes it's not going to stick. And probably was the right shot to take on, but he still missed it. And that same blue is going to be available for Jack to guarantee himself a respot. If he rolls this one in towards the yellow pocket, of course he's not going to roll this one. He's going to try and get the cue ball down the table here. But he's going to miss it, so maybe a little bit of nerves there for him. Going to get quite lucky though with the way the cue ball has cannoned itself in towards the green pocket and then got in the jaws. And has actually finished up with a brilliant safety shot, you would think, on the previous occasion. And to be fair to Jack, I mean, he was playing for a respot guarantee, clearly understanding that he doesn't have to risk it at this stage, and had to focus on just making the blue in towards the yellow pocket. And right now it's all to play for in this frame. Zhou Yuelong once again gets the cue ball down the table and doesn't want to have the cue ball anywhere near the pocket. But in the end, he's actually brought the blue onto the left-hand side of the D there. So it's like a long shot practice is the way you have to treat these. But of course, this is for a 5-0 lead in the semi-final. Very close by Jack. And is the cue ball going to catch the jaw of the middle pocket? In the end, it's all happening here on the snooker table. But it's not getting the result that Jack would want to see. You know, only missing that blue by the skin of his teeth there. And still, you know, if he, to be fair to him, if he made that adjustment that would have made the blue drop in, may as well actually drop the cue ball in towards the right middle as well. So all about trying to make this blue down the table here. And get the cue ball pretty much with the stun shot. Make sure he's going to stick there onto the ball cushion. Yeah, I mean, he's tried to play it with something like a cushion first shot. So try and get it as thin as possible. Nail biter this frame. Yeah, I mean, it could have been over had Jack, I don't think he had to reinvent the wheel there. And, you know, had the yellow possible after that brilliant double off the red. Instead, he tried to go for the green. And here we find ourselves in this safety battle. Very similar to the opening frame, but of course, at that time, you know, it was when we were down to 4 colours left. It was snooker needed for Zhou Yuelong. And I mean, nearly, I was going to say that he was going to get very, very lucky there. Lisowski, in the end, it ain't going to matter there for him because Zhou can still see enough of that blue to actually play the shot in the way he would probably like it to. So Lisowski just catching the blue in the way that was, you know, the thinnest of contacts at that time. So 8 points in between the two players, and once again there, doesn't seem to be too confident with taking the shot on. Zhou obviously realising the fact that, you know, one mistake and he's out, and he's trying to be very careful with the shot that he approaches and takes. Right now just has a little look to see if he can get the cue ball in towards the blue and try and have those separated. Can he have the blue down the middle of the table and not towards the corner pocket? In the end, I think he's played a reasonable shot there. He's going to get the blue towards the right-hand side of the table. And, you know, he's going to leave a safety shot away there to Jack, which is not going to be an issue there for him. But in the end, I think he's going to be pretty content with the fact that he's not going to give an easy chance away to his opponents. And something that, you know, Jack was very close to doing and might actually still give that blue away to Zhou. Of course, it's not an easy shot, but it's a possibility to take this blue in towards the green pocket. So now, of course, remember, Jack only needs the blue to guarantee himself a respot, and Zhou Yuelong needs a total clearance to make it his frame, and hopefully for himself a start of something special there, if you are looking for a comeback. And, I mean, more of that, please, I would say. Nice shot there from Zhou, because, I mean, I don't think he's going to get the perfect snooker. And, well, I mean, he might do, because Jack is actually asking the referee to remember this position, so clearly not being too confident in himself actually making the shot. And, I mean, it's like almost everyone is having a look at it. I don't know why Zhou was getting involved in there, trying to have a look at it, because it's not his shot to play. And in the end, it's a nice little contact there. on the blue, but it's still going to be a chance given away, you would think, unless the cue ball is going to finish perfectly on towards the ball cushion here, which Lisowski has actually managed to perform there. So still nothing to separate the two players as they just exchange the little shot sequences here. And once again, it's probably a chance that Zhou Yuelong will refuse here, try and get the cue ball in behind the black, and it's a decent effort, and it's more than a decent effort, it's a brilliant effort there, because it's going to cover up the angle for Jack here, and he has to send the cue ball the long way around here as the match reaches the 90-minute mark, and looks like he is going to make this one stick. And what a shot that is by Jack there, brilliant there. It looked like he was going to actually miss it in the first place, but just manages to get it on the rebound. And back to Zhou it goes. Once again, a decent enough chance there for him to try and get the cue ball in behind either pink or black here, but can't really risk the positional play on the blue either, because you have to guarantee that it's not going to be available for Jack to actually take on. And in the end, marginal, but I still think it's a good shot there for him, not quite putting the blue on towards the ball cushion, but getting the cue ball lined up perfectly onto the black ball cushion itself. As has been pretty much 2 hours since we've started this match. And once again, that nice little transition as the switch of the play there from Jack, trying to put the cue ball and the blue onto the opposite sides of the table, one of the right hand cushion and one of the left one. Still beyond the bulk line when it comes to the blue, not quite for the cue ball though. So he's going to give a chance away to Zhou Yuelong to try and have blue position perfectly on towards the ball cushion, but that's not going to be good enough there for him to try and apply some more pressure on Jack, because the way for you to get out of this situation is to try and apply a little bit of backspin on the cue ball, try and stun it and put it towards the ball cushion. I mean, Jack obviously didn't fancy doing that, so he just does similar thing to what he's done previously. Just switches the run of play and puts the cue ball onto the left-hand side of the table, with the blue being the one on the right-hand side. It's one of those shots that, you feel like Jack would have taken on there as a double, but because Yuelong needs the pink and the black here, he can't really afford to just take in the blue on, because it's a pointless shot for him. In case of, if he makes the blue, he still needs a position on the pink, but if he misses it, the risks of him giving the blue away are going to be very, very serious there. And, well, I mean, Jack, for me, he got down to hit that shot way too quickly, and it could cost him the frame here. He caught the blue way too thin on the edge there, and ultimately, this time around, it's Jack that blinks first. And we're going to see some of the movement here. Zhou Yuelong, surely he's going to take this blue in towards the green pocket and actually make this one stick. Yes, he is. Nice little shot there for him. So it needs the cue ball to run now. Wants this pink to be taken in towards the middle, because the angle on the black is going to be there for him, and he could not have played the shots on the blue any better. So there could be still a way back there for him, because 4-1 doesn't sound as bad as 5-0 of a lead. For Jack's point of view, he could have had this frame wrapped up a couple of times, but in the end, it's all for the black now, for Zhou Yuelong to just try and get himself a frame on the board. And that's the starting point. And of course, it is going to be the way for him to get back in this semi-final, to try and win those frames that are going to be very scrappy there, just like he was in the opening one. Lisowski managed to take three frames from there at that time. Can Zhou Yuelong try and do something of a similar here? You'll have to do it, and he'll have to perform a lot better than what he's managed to so far. But ultimately, it is now going to be Jack Lisowski 4, Zhou Yuelong 1 going into frame number 6. And of course, ultimately, it was the time where it was Zhou Yuelong's break off. He managed to get it off into a decent start there for him. And, well, very important for him, actually, not to allow Lisowski to be in that 5-frame zone, because, all of a sudden you're only 1 frame away. And it's very different from you being 2 frames away there, which is still the situation there for Jack. Even though, of course, he's going to remain a massive favourite to take the match from here. But at least he's not out of the contention yet now, if you talk about Zhou Yuelong. And it's all going to be about the next couple of frames. If he manages to take those, when I'm talking about Zhou. He gets himself to a 4-3 of a deficit. Just try and make it a 4-all, and all of a sudden it's back to the square one there, and a 50-50 game. Remember, he has had a very tough experience yesterday against Tom Ford. Not quite a 4-0 gap that he had to overcome, but a 4-2 gap for him to actually clinch that match in a very nervy decider with a 5-4 of a scoreline. And, he's not out of the contention just yet, and he still could be fighting back here as we wait for Jack to return back to the arena. Of course, he would have been so close to actually get himself to the 5-0 zone, and surely he would have been all over there for Zhou. I still thought he was for all over at 4-0. But, it's a different story at 4-1, especially if he manages to take that momentum to his advantage and actually build on that. Get himself into the run of play here and try and put more pressure on Lisowski as the match goes on here. So, we've reached the 90 minutes mark of playing time. You'll have to make it probably double that if Zhou actually wants to win this semi-final and make it into the second Home Nations final for him. Of course, this season, after doing that against Mark Selby and Luca Brusel there in very interesting quarter-final and semi-final stage, ultimately losing out by a single frame there to Mark Cullen. But you're not out of the game until you actually are out of the game. And Jack Lisowski needs to be after a good shot now as he comes back to the arena and has a break-off shot to get us underway in frame number 6, the frame that all of a sudden has actually turned into quite an important one for Jack, because it's not the one that he must win, but it's the one that very much would make that frame that was won by Zhou Yuelong previously just an exception of the main run of things, and still put him very comfortable lead there with 5 frames to 1. Or it could be a change of the story, and that deficit could be half there. And all of a sudden 4-0 before the interval will turn into a 4-2 gap there in favour of Jack Lisowski. That's not the way to play a safety though, because that red is going to go very close towards the yellow pocket, and it's not going to drop there, but it is going to drop from Jack Lisowski's shot surely, because you're not missing that red. And, all the momentum that I talked about is going to evaporate here. And is going to be given as a chance to Jack himself here. As he now has himself positioned on either yellow or green. So all about getting the cue ball down the table once again here. And of course, remember, very similar frame to the opening one in the case of, he started with a 53 points of a gap there for Jack in both of those frames. Exactly the same number, and in the end it had Zhou Yuelong a couple of attempts there and a couple of misses from Jack in both the opening and the 5th frame there, but in contrast it was more mistakes from Zhou Yuelong in the opening frame than he was in the frame number 5, and he's managed to make it the frame that counts for him so far, but he ain't gonna make a massive difference if he allows Jack Lisowski off the hook here and sort of still gets himself a nice little 5-1 cushion, which is going to be on the line now at this frame. Still 83% of you think that Lisowski is going to be victorious and he's going to make it into the final. Probably, as I was ridiculing that vote at the start of this match, probably, you can probably start about doing the same with me here. But, who knew that Jack was going to put all of his struggles and inconsistency behind him and perform probably the best match that I've seen in terms of the entire tournament campaign. He probably is going to edge Trump against John Higgins' performance by some margin for now. But of course, it's not over yet, and the previous frame could make a bit of an impact on Jack's point of view. And I think what sort of impact we're going to see right here, right now, because he gets himself into a situation where he's going to be very marginal to trying to get this red in towards the left corner. In the end he played it as if the other red wasn't there. Gets himself on the black nicely. So 20 points as an advantage, and now just taking his black in towards the right corner. Getting himself on one more available red, which he's not going to run out of just for a couple of moments time. 27 now, 115 on the table, so every single one of those frames has seen Jack Lisowski dominate the beginning of it. And then sometimes, more times no, then yes. We've seen Yuelong come back and challenge Lisowski there. And, well, I mean, the only times that actually did occur was in frames number 1 and 5 that I mentioned previously. And, I mean, it's a wonderful shot there from Jack, but is he going to get himself on anything? And, not sure the answer is going to be to that question, because it was a wonderful black to play for him, pretty much off the cushion. But in the end, I think he was trying to get himself on either left or right middle, and in the end going to be right in between those two. I mean, he's got a plant available to him, but there's a little bit of distance there in between the two reds, but he manages to take this one. So brilliant shot there from Jack as he gets himself away from that danger zone. So these are the type of shots, as I say, and I have been saying throughout this tournament, that are going to define the loser from the winner. And the way for you to do that is actually to try and pounce on your mistakes. And, you know, when you run yourself out of position, you play a brilliant shot to get yourself back in the control of what's happening on the table. You have to make sure that that's not going to be the only time you actually have to do that. And ever since then, it's all going to be nice and straightforward for you. And once again there, 39 points is the gap for Jack here. Gets there. Well, he can have a choice of either pinking towards the right middle or blacking towards the right corner. I think the more straightforward pot is going to be the pink here. As he rolls that one in nicely. So all about this red to try and take in towards the right corner here. So now 45 points is going to be his advantage. And, you know, he's getting all those reds down to the minimum amount here. 46 up now with only 83 available. You know, one nice shot into the bunch, which probably doesn't really need now. You know, he probably doesn't understand that, as he'll try to get himself off a shot in towards the right middle. But I will say, if he runs himself out of position, he is an absolute fool for doing that, because if he's now 53 points clear, you know, he eliminates 2 more reds, he's going to have 67 points on the table, and the gap is going to be way bigger than that. But in the end, he's not a fool, and there's the 5 margin there between calling a player a bit naive there for playing this shot, and saying well done there for actually taking the risk and making it work for yourself. This could be another GG's in this frame for a 5-1 lead there. And, you know, all of that comes away from a silly shot from Zhou Yuelong, which would have been his first in the frame. Try and transition the red onto the top part of the table. In the end, has found the way too close towards the yellow pocket. And the rest is going to be history now, because it's 67 points of advantage in Jack Lisowski's favour. And blink right now, and this red is going to disappear in towards the right corner, which means it is indeed going to be a 5-1 lead for Jack. So all that work in the previous frame is going to come to absolutely nothing. And we could see another brilliant break here from Jack. You know, he certainly has won this frame. And we see one more century break to add to his count. Lisowski is on fire. I mean, Richard, you have not been more right in your life that he's on fire, and someone call the fire brigade, because I think that fire is getting out of control. I'll be honest with you, and there's certainly nothing that the lad from China can do about it. The break of 83 points is counting here for Jack, making that 84 with the red in towards the left corner, sending the black in towards the same pocket there. I think he was trying to get himself in behind the reds in towards the left middle, and I think in the end going to make it a little bit of a harder shot than he could have been for himself. But hard is nothing there for Jack Lisowski. With the way this match has gone, all the difficulties, at least on 5 of the occasions of the previous 6 frames, he has managed to take and convert into a win for himself there. So all about trying to get this red in towards the right middle, gets himself another century break on the board. And I mean, what do you know about consistency? 3 century breaks in the last 5 frames there is nothing short of extraordinary there for him. The referee is certainly doing all the run that she can to try and keep up with the pace of Jack Lisowski, to try and put the blue and any of the other colours back on the table. I am the fan of Judd, but I don't mind if Lisowski clinching up the trophy. Richard, I think Judd is going to have... I mean, if Lisowski manages to play like this, and by the way, if he makes it into the final, never say never. If Lisowski manages to play like this, Trump needs to make sure he responds there, because Judge Trump against John Higgins was good yesterday, but that is another level of snooker that we're seeing, and it might actually be one of the best ones that you actually see. And once again there, Jack doesn't want to improve on the break of 125 points. He could have easily gone for the black there. In the end, 125, 124, and another 125 points of a break. Jack Lisowski now gets himself a 5-1 lead, and now he's only one successful break away from making it into the final with either clash of Judd Trump or Mark Cullen. And I mean, unless it's going to be Mark Cullen, I just think the crowd are going to be all for it, for Jack to finally make it stick there for him, especially after such performance. If anyone of the fans have actually bought the ticket for the semi-final and the final session, I mean, they certainly have been treated to an absolute showdown here. And let's hope that it's going to remain that way for, you know, how many more frames we're actually going to get here. Or, of course, the case for Lisowski's dominating the order. I mean, he is. But remember, we're still on the other side of the draw. We are having two players that have managed to win this tournament quite a few times. You know, 4 times for Judge Trump previously, and of course twice in a row for Mark Cullen. You know, if you take away the 2024 win of last year of Karen Wilson, in 2023 you had Judge Trump win it. 2022 you had Mark Cullen. 2021 you had Mark Cullen. 2018 you had Judge Trump win it, 3 frames on the bounce there. So apart from Kyron, these two players have dominated the Belfast tournament. So it's going to be an absolute mountain to climb for probably Jack here. Still say probably because, you know, winning 5 frames on the bounce is possible for Zhou, although it is going to be a massive mountain for him to try and climb. As, well, we could be entering the last and the end game point of this match if we haven't seen one already. Right here, right now, as I say, it's all about only a single frame win for Jack, and he's going to be away in towards the final clash there with either Mark Allen or Judge Trump, as I say. Has gone for a break here, which may well be the last one that he actually needs until making himself the first person to actually make the final. So now all ready for us to get underway. Apologies, it wasn't Jack that's gone for the bathroom break. It was Yuelong that obviously was bored and sitting in his chair. And, well, has to gather his thoughts there, probably rightfully. But I'm not too sure he's going to help him now with the gap of 5-1 not in his favour. And, I mean, wonderful performance from Jack. Of course, he's going to be there on the top side of the draw, having defeated the reigning champion, Karen Wilson, in the progress. He's going to be the first person on the name there of the score sheet yesterday. So even if he has to face the world number 1 or the world number 9, he's going to be, well, certainly not the massive underdog if he tries to perform anything like he's managed to today. And it is now a shot that could turn to be the last one from Yuelong. We've seen that before in frame number 3. As he goes for a break-off shot. May well be his last one of the match here. Once again, he's managed to learn from his mistakes there. So the breaks on frame number 5 and 7 were a lot better. The ones on 1 and 3. And in the end, it's still going to be a red given away here to Jack, which you may as well take on there with yourself having a 5-1 lead to your name. And what a red that is. Brilliant way to get yourself on the way. And once again, flawless Lisowski, flawless Jack. And Jack is flying. You can have all sorts of headlines from this sort of performance. But this shot is certainly the best that we've seen in the entire match there. By the way, what's your name, Laura? Well, it's a good one because it's Sasha. I'll spell you that one in the chat there. There you go. But it certainly is the Jack show here because he gets himself on another chance. So it's all about trying to make this position similar to the one that he's done in the previous frame. As he now tries to run away with it. So position himself on the pink nicely to go 12 points clear. And has got a couple of reds to try and choose from. So still 12 points clear. And, well, you know, it's all about when you enter the zone that you only need 1 frame away. It is going to, you know, you are going to be impacted by the pressure ever so slightly. But when you are playing with such confidence and you're making those shots that, you know, actually got him with this chance in towards the right corner, don't think the pressure is going to be there for you. because you're going to be there for the pressure. The pink is going to have to go onto the lower part of the reds, so Jack has to try and get this cue ball back for the blue here. Nice to talk with you. Keep up the good work, but appreciate that. Lovely little message there. Lovely little message there. So now we've got the blue lined up in towards the left middle. So as he manages to roll this one in. So now it's all focus has to be on trying to get that black spot a bit more freed up there, apart from the reds. He's got two reds bunched up very close to the black after the one that tries to take off right now from the table. And now to go 19 points clear. Introduce the commentator, please. I just did. Literally just did. Once again, so 26 points is going to be something for him to try and hold on to, especially if he takes those three reds away into either right or left corner. Once again there, referee just trying to, could this be the tournament for Jack? I mean, you could never say never there, but you'll have to go against one of the players that have actually dominated the tournament previously. Hi Sasha, hello. JJ, you're back there. And I mean, what an absolute pleasure this has been to actually watch them. 34 points clear. And right now, it is going to be Jack's show to try and finish off here with an absolute magnitude of a performance. 3 century breaks, by the way, in the 5 previous frames that he managed to witness there, and it win. And very much not going below the 124 mark, trying to send the cue ball into the bunch of reds. And let's see if he's going to get himself on one of them. And of course he will. With the way this match has gone, this would not have been right for him to actually run himself out of position here. And, I mean, you can study this match all you want there if you Yuelong, but this may actually be just one of them for you to say that he's been too good of a performance. And, I mean, when he misses shots like that into the right middle, he's still going to get very fortunate of... Don't think he's going to leave anything away there. Should be a good match later. I mean, it's going to be a brilliant one, because it's going to be the one that is actually going to be the favourite for the final. In between the last 7 years there, you had Zhou win the tournament 4 times. Mark Allen Turner on the bounce there. Who do we want to win? I probably want Trump to win, because I haven't seen him win the tournament for a while. And I've also seen Allen take the English Open there. I hope Allen wins. Well, you obviously do, but I just think I've seen him win English Open, and that's why I actually won't mind to see Lisowski against Trump there, because, it's fun to see Yuelong against Mark Allen once there, but I don't really think it's going to be too fun for me to watch that twice in the matter of weeks there. What's the next Scottish or Welsh? It's going to be Scottish in December. Of course, we're going to have to go through the International Championship first. Then we're going to have Champion of Champions. Then we're going to have the UK Championship. The Riyadh season is going to be there as well, with 2 wildcards being confirmed yesterday by the WST. Going to be some of the homegrown players from Saudi Arabia to make it, alongside the other 10 best players in the world. There's Jack there once again. Will be very eager to try and finish this one off here, being 40 points clear already. And wouldn't it be bad if Allen won all the home nations? I mean, it certainly will be mad, especially if he does it here for this home tournament. And a lovely little shot there from Yuelong. He's not out of this yet, though. And he can try and take it on a frame-by-frame basis. I'm not going to say he's going to be able to be back in this match, because he won't until we reach at least the decider. It's the Saudi Cup, the 167 tournament. Exactly is. We already had the Saudi Arabian Masters, but we're going to have the Riyadh season, which is the official name for it, but it basically is the 167 over break, for players to try and challenge for that $1 million incredible prize money for whoever makes it with the golden ball. Ron, you'll fancy his chances for that? Yeah, I mean, everyone will fancy his chances for that. I've seen Sean Murphy do a little interview saying that, wouldn't it be absolutely mad for you to win $1 million in a space of, 15 minutes there if you talk about a single break? It's not often you see footballers do deals like that. But, of course, that's the money that Saudi Arabia can offer there to you. And, well, right here, right now, we're all about John Higgins got the closest made it. Yes, I've seen that. I've actually seen it, but I actually think he could have done better. you know, he could have get himself a better position. I know it was difficult, but I think that's probably just the time where the pressure gets to you, and you know, that $1 million, sorry, gets in your head there. And even for someone like John Higgins, that usually unfazed by the pressure, just ask Mark Cullen in that World Championship, decide that off theirs. And lovely little shot though from Zhou Yuelong, gets himself on the pink here. So, you know, was in a little bit of trouble, managed to get himself out of it. And now has the cue position for a nice little straight shot. What's the highest breaks? I should ask you before, but I can't remember. Yeah, it was 44 there. So, I mean, I'm not far from Zhou Yuelong, am I? In terms of the semi-final. It was 44 for me that I actually managed to replicate twice. Once in my home country and once here. And right here, just roll the red in towards the right corner after playing a bit of a difficult shot there of the pink into the right corner. He's going to have himself lined up for the black there to try and return it back to his spot. And maybe he'll try and challenge me there after the break of 46 being the highest so far in this match. He's not having not played and having a walkover last round, probably going against him in this match. I actually thought it was going to be a massive boost for him. I knew he got a bit lucky. Obviously, still can't really say too much about Carter withdrawal because all it says on the WST page is it has withdrawn for personal reasons. But I thought it would have been one of the hardest matches for him to go for. And, you know, very difficult encounter against Ford as well. Managed to come back from being 4-2 down. And in the end, it is going to be 13 points down that he finds himself in right now. So still not beyond the realms of possibility for him to actually win the frame in the current visit. You know, he's got two reds right under the pink, in between the pink and the black here, which are going to be easy there for the taking. And right now he just tries and, well, I mean, he plays this black in towards the right corner there. Having himself lined up on the pink, on the red, in towards the right corner. As he plays this one quite nicely there. So, wants to be on the wrong side of the black though. So, get himself a little bit higher up the table. If you got 43 points clear. And you're going to be at least ahead in this match. Nicely played here. So, he tried to take the red out of the game, which was, you know, quite close to the right-hand cushion. In the end, I think he was trying to play in behind that red to get himself lined up for the left middle shot, as he hasn't played that one too well. And, I mean, it's a decent shot there for him, because it was a risk-free shot in terms of getting the cue ball in behind the red in towards the left middle. In the end, had to go for the shot in towards the left corner. So now the black to go 11 points clear, and attempt number 2 now to get the cue ball in behind the red. Minus 56 there. I haven't seen the break though. Might actually have a little revision. We'll also have a break from Snooker in the next week. Chances to beat that, but messed up. Good stuff. Good stuff, as you say. And Joe is going to come after you here. He's on a break of 52 points after this race, which is going to be his highest in the entire match here. The black to actually make that past JJ. I mean, once again, he has to go for this red in towards the right middle there, which means he's going to have the cue ball lined up in behind it, which is going to make the shot a bit tricky for him. So all about the next couple of shots here. That is going to dictate the run of play. And if you roll the black in with just about enough power, I mean, I don't think the red is going to be possible there in towards the green pocket. I mean, I might be wrong for this one, but I've got no idea what he's played there. He's 19 points clear now. And, yeah, he's 35 on the table. Clearly, with his body language, he ain't going to have this red available there for him. So, it's still not done yet now for him to go into frame number 8 with any sort of guarantees there that he's going to remain in this semi-final for at least one more frame. And there's a video of that on the channel too, highest on the mini tables, 92 dynamic century. On that's it. Well, I mean, if you get the practice in, it's going to come for you eventually. But yeah, it doesn't look like Yuelong is going to settle for anything more than 59 points of a break. And we've seen this image before. We've seen this story before. And we know the script. He's going to go for the double. And he's likely to make it for me. And if he was likely to make it for me, he didn't actually make it there for himself. So, you know, seen the script. But he obviously thought something else about it. Still now, 19 points is the gap now in between the two players. He wins this frame and the next Zhou, and it's game on. No, I don't think so. I've said it before. I don't think that's the case. I don't think that's the case. Jack might get jittery. I think in normal circumstances, I get what you're saying. I mean, not disrespect to Jack himself, but he's been consistently inconsistent throughout his career. But I actually fancy him to win this frame. And that was before this shot was played, by the way, because I certainly fancy him to win this frame if he makes this ready, which is going to be available to him in towards the green pocket. But yeah, this is what pressure can do to you. Oh my word, I've not seen a fluke of that magnitude in a semi-final for absolutely ages. He's gone for the red in towards the green pocket, but he's fluked it in towards the yellow pocket along the cushion. I mean, that is going to be on the highlights reel. And what a way for you, if that's going to be the way for him to win this semi-final. And today is the birthday of my nephew, wanting to wish him. And happy birthday. Yes, just let me know his name and I'll certainly do a happy birthday to him there. And, you know, very much a happy birthday for him if you are the fan of Jack Lisowski. Because, I mean, what a performance this has been. He absolutely got the red. I mean, don't ask me how he managed to do it. In the end, it ain't going to matter there for him. Roll the green in towards its own pocket. And he's going to be in for a 4-color straightforward clearance. You know, hats off to Yuelong once again making it so deep into the Home Nation series. Probably joint, of course, highest and most successful player of the Home Nation series so far in this calendar year. But it has been a challenge that would have been impossible for him to actually go through. Even without that fluke, it would have been Jack Lisowski match to lose. In the end, it is now match ball on the pink to guarantee himself a spot to the final. And it is going to be very much an important win day in his career. And, you know, Yuelong has played his part in this match for sure, but ultimately it was a bit too much for him to go through. And it is now a 6-1 win for Jack Lisowski that is certainly going to be smiling about it as he makes it into the final of Belfast under the most bizarre circumstances in the last frame. Yuelong will find himself probably hard done there in that frame, but ultimately it was always going to be an impossible challenge there for him after it became a scoreline of 5-1. Congrats to Lisowski and his fans. And what a journey it has been for him, defeating the world number 2, the world number 9, and the world number 30 now. I mean, yeah, Yuelong doesn't come across as probably the dangerous player that he actually is there, but making the final of the Home Nations previously, defeating the likes of Selby, Page, Brissell, and Williams on the way. And right now, he finds himself absolutely stunned there with a scoreline of 6-1, I should say. And it's all down to the higher up and the higher rated players. It is going to be Watchalong against Mark Allen in the second semi-final. But until then, well, if you go through this match, it's only been 7 frames to it. But ultimately, I think the biggest damage to Lisowski has been done in the opening frame. He's managed to take it under his control. He got himself a nice little chance of the break-off mistake, which has been a recurring one, unfortunately, for Yuelong in the first and the third frames, and ultimately he's lost out both of those. But ultimately, he had a chance there to make a clearance, which would have put him a frame away there. The Tom Cruise of Snooker. I mean, it's certainly Jump, I would say that. I wouldn't say that about Jack Lisowski just yet. He needs to win a ranking event title first. But he's certainly done all the work earlier on here. Gets himself a really tough and hard 4-frame win in the opening encounter. And, I mean, what has followed has been nothing short of a spectacular performance. Breaks of 125 and 124 in frames number 2 and 3 there is something that you very rarely see in the semi-final stage against, of course, especially the likes of opposition of Yuelong that likes to be on the front foot himself. And you know, one miss and it could be a frame taken away from you. Ultimately, it was a 3-0 lead, which already is going to be a nice little cushion there for him to try and hold on to. And then right before the intermission, we had another difficult frame from Yuelong's point of view. He managed to score 5 points there, get himself a nice little chance, but in the end, it was another clearance there. And a 4-0 lead for Jack Lisowski was very much on the cards there. And you go into the intermission break and you think, well, realistically for Zhou to come back in this match, he needs to win 2 frames on the bounce there. He managed to do once there. Very much scrappy frame yet again there. Lisowski getting an early break of 53 points. And he didn't manage to develop any further than that, to be fair. You know, had a nice little straightforward exit there to make it a 4-1 of a scoreline. So still 3 frames deficit, but you could feel that the game maybe was coming back to him at that time. But he had to make sure he'd done the same thing in frame number 6. And, I mean, he didn't do that because it was a brilliant clearance once again there from Jack. No mistake at that time, of course, from Zhou, because he left him with a very difficult shot in towards the right corner. And he didn't manage to do anything with it. But, I mean, he only managed to do a break of 125 points once again there. So, you know, the fact that he's managed to have the breaks of, in total, 374 in 3 frames there is nothing short of an amazing performance. And when you go 5-1 up, it's always just a matter of time for you. And it was a bit cruel in terms of his circumstances that he managed to get that win. But ultimately, it was a win that was very much deserved there for him. And he will now await his opponents at the final stage, whether he's going to be Watchalong or Watchalong. Feel free to tune in to actually find out yourself, because we are going to do a nice little coverage of that match as well. The world number 1 up against the world number 9 in just 3 and a bit hours from now on. But for now, thank you very much for joining in, and we'll see you around for more snooker action as the second Home Nation series of event is going to come to an end tomorrow there on Sunday. Jack Lisowski is confirmed there as the first player, but who's going to join him there, and ultimately who's going to take the crown as the winner of the second tournament of the Home Nation series. Thank you very much everyone for watching, and we'll see you around today for more action with Trump and Allen battling for the second spot in the final. Thank you again, and speak to you soon. Take care.